the FBI is preparing for possible retaliation from Iran, pivoting its resources to counterterrorism and cybersecurity efforts. ICE, meantime, arrested 11 Iranian nationals since Sunday, all of whom were in the country illegally. They include suspected terrorists, even a former member of the Iranian forces. Joining me now on this, June 25th, is U.S. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum. Secretary, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for being here this morning.
Great to be with you, Maria, always.
So I want to get your take on this as we now worry about the potential for retaliation with potential terror cells in the U.S., sleeper cells, they're called, by Iranians. How big of a threat is this from your standpoint?
Well, I think it's a real threat, and obviously this is just a carryover of the disastrous open border policies of Joe Biden. Few people understand that the 41% of the southwestern border is land that is managed by Interior. That's why we worked with the Department of Defense with this Roosevelt Reservation. We transferred a 60-foot strip of land along all the New Mexico border and into California. Theodore Roosevelt thought of this 120 years ago, which is, hey, at some point people may want to be smuggling stuff, is the words that used in his term, but whether it's people or drugs. But it's not just 1,000 or so Iranians that we know are in the country illegally that came through. There's a number that is unknown, the unknown number of people that were unapprehended, came through undetected, weren't detained, weren't interviewed. That number is also in the millions. And so it's a real risk for our country. And again, President Trump has done a fantastic job of shutting it down. And the big, beautiful bill has got dollars in to secure our border. And you don't have national security if you don't have border security. President Trump understands that, and he's doing something about it.
Yeah, and this is all a result of the last 4 years where Joe Biden had a wide open border and no vetting process in place. And of course, we don't even know if that was Joe Biden's idea or the auto pen. Near a tandem who testified yesterday. But look, I digress. Your portfolio, I'm glad you mentioned federal lands because your portfolio is obviously very broad, including the management of those federal lands. What do you want to say about the Chinese wanting to acquire land in the United States, their surveillance campaigns rising consistently, and potentially buying land so that they could be close to, military infrastructure to continue spying on our operations?
Well, there are many states that have already taken action against this. And of course, and even like my home state of North Dakota, legislature passing laws around the country banning China, the CCP, from owning farmland, from owning land that's near any of our military installations. And so I think that many parts of our nation are ahead of the federal government in taking action to block that, because again, particularly when it comes to farmland, food security is also national security.
That's right.
And China imports calories every day to feed their people. They're the largest importer in the world of energy. They do not have energy security. They do not have food security. And the U.S. should be making sure that we retain all of that farmland in U.S. hands.
Yeah, good point. As we just have been reporting over the last few weeks of these Chinese nationals taking pathogens, dangerous pathogens, into affect our crops. But let me get your take on energy, because one of your most significant actions since taking on the role was signing an order to address what the president has viewed, and the president signing executive orders as a national energy emergency. You are aiming to increase the nation's energy supply, protecting our national and economic security. But the price of oil is also part of this. Oil prices this morning hovering around $64 a barrel, falling 6% on Tuesday, settling at a 2-week low. We had a huge sell-off. The Israel-Iran ceasefire is reducing the risk of oil disruptions in the Middle East. But I spoke with August Pfluger yesterday, the congressman from Texas, who's of course, constituent is arguably one of the best capacity of energy in America. And I posed a question to him about the price of oil. Watch this. When oil gets down to levels like they are right now, 66, do the oil companies say, forget it, I'm not going to do any drilling. It's too cheap. I'm not making enough money on it.
Well, it's not that they're not making enough money. It's the fact that it's not economical. We need it to be 65 to 85. That's really the range that the economy needs.
Economical for who?
It's to extract the oil, the technology. It takes a certain price.
Yeah. So, Mr. Secretary, what about that? I wonder if when oil prices go down, do the oil companies say, you know what, I'm not making enough money on this, I'm not going to expand my operations? Am I onto something?
I think what we have to say is that a giant thank you to everybody that works in the oil and gas industry, and particularly all those people that produce shale. I mean, the fact that we're sitting here, Maria, talking about oil prices in the middle of we just finished a war in the Middle East. If this would have happened 20 years ago, oil would be at $100.
Yes.
And the U.S. would be in a panic and our economy would be in a collapse. But because we've gone in 20 years, just in 20 years, we went from being an import-dependent nation to a nation that now is exporting, and particularly LNG, around the world. The battles are going on, the threats of closing the Strait of Hormuz, and oil prices effectively are moving within a very narrow band, and now they're back off $10 from a week ago. Everybody that gets up every day, and if you turn on the lights, you turn on your air conditioning, you get in your car, you drive, you ought to be saying a thank you to the job creators, to the innovators and the entrepreneurs that make up the U.S. energy industry, because their work is what tapped into the shale reserves, and it's the reason why we've become an energy powerhouse, is because of that innovation. And if you talk about break-even point, back in 2015, when OPEC plus Russia tried to collapse the price and drive the shale producers out of things, they all were able to keep innovating and lower their break-even point.
Yeah.
The amount of innovation that's going on today, just in horizontal drilling, in many of these plays. I was in the Permian 2 days ago, and I know it's in the Bakken in North Dakota. Instead of doing 2-mile laterals, they're doing 3-mile laterals in terms of developing. That's a 50% increase in producing length on a well. So, I mean, the productivity, they can keep dropping the break even. And what we're doing on the federal side is making sure that we cut the red tape. We can take another 10% off their break even point just by getting red tape out of their way.
Yeah, add on to that entrepreneurial success, Chris Wright, our energy secretary, who, of course, was among those who sparked the shale revolution. So wonderful news there. But I guess I'm trying to understand when the agenda, President Trump's agenda, is going to zero in on those kinds of things. I mean, we're talking so much about the geopolitical issues. We're talking about getting the big, beautiful bill passed with the extension of the tax cuts. When are we going to see things like permitting actually codified? Because this is something that is talked about all the time within the oil sector as an incredibly needed element to advance growth.
Well, the big, beautiful bill helps on a number of things. It takes actions that the president's executive orders, that Chris Wright at Energy and what I've done in Interior to try to cut the red tape and puts it into law. It's another reason, this big, beautiful bill has got so much, but it's really delivering on President Trump's promises, which is lower taxes, less regulation, and a fast-growing economy. And with the amount of direct foreign investment that's coming in. But if you want to talk about things we're doing right now, the amount of permitting that we've gotten done, we've issued more than 900 drilling permits more during the same period of the first 6 months of this administration compared to what the Biden administration, they were trying to shut down the auctions. So we have a 44% increase in that. Just one sentence change in a regulation that I was able to do in drilling in the Gulf of America around the commingling. We're adding over 100,000 barrels a day just by changing one sentence with no risk to anyone, just common sense. Activity that's happening. So whether they're little things like that don't make it into the news or big things, everything we're doing is driving President Trump's energy dominance agenda. And that's why we have the ability to take action around the world. That's why we can project power, is because we've got energy. We have energy for ourselves and for our allies.
Well, I love that. 900 permitting licenses. It's just amazing, Secretary. Thank you. And it's so needed now. Electricity prices surging over the past year, doubling the overall inflation rate due to rising demand. With AI and everything else, we're seeing real pressure on that electricity, right?
Yes, and that's where the real energy crisis is in our grid. This morning at 6 a.m., Maria, in the PJM grid, which extends from D.C. to New York, think of Pentagon to Wall Street. At 6 a.m. this morning today, on this very warm day where there's going to be potentially peak records of demand, only 2% of the power in that entire area for 60 million people was coming from wind and solar, 98% from other sources. The majority of that, over 70%, from fossil fuels.
Of course.
So the idea that somehow that we're going to power our country on intermittent, when on a day like today it's only providing 2% of the power, that's a fantasy.
Well, of course, and I'm glad you mentioned it. It's just outrageous that was the the policy before President Trump and you and your colleagues got in office. Thank you, Secretary. Great to see you.